Hi, Enid.
Hi, Ann.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Marion.
Hi, how are you?
We're good. So glad that we have these two poets to listen to and to the open mic too.
Oh, that's great.
We're going to start in about 3 minutes now, I believe.
Okay.
Right, Erin?
Uh, we're at 3:57 right now. We're going to try to start just shortly after 4 o'clock, about maybe 4:03 or so.
Okay.
So about 5 more minutes. But we're glad that you all are here and
Hey.
we're looking forward to hearing some wonderful poetry. We're going to have an open mic at the end. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys brought today.
Right.
So get your poetry out and ready. Well, we have two featured poets today. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's good to imagine your presence. I can't see everybody, but the two featured poets are John Struloff, who is our third Malibu Poet Laureate, and Allison Luderman, whom I fell in love with by reading her poems in a magazine. And John Struloff is going to start today, and I'm going to read a quote from him to introduce him. Poetry at its best calls forth our deep being. It dares us to break free from the safe strategies of the cautious mind. It calls to us, like the wild geese, as Mary Oliver would say, from an open sky. It is a magical art and always has been, a making of language spells designed to open our eyes, open our doors, and welcome us into a bigger world, one of possibilities we may never have dared to dream of. So, and that's by Roger Housden. Roger Housden wrote that. And John, welcome to you and all the possibilities. Here you are.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. It's good to see so many people here. I'm reading from my office at Pepperdine with Einstein over my shoulder. He's always, I either have Tolstoy or Einstein looking over my shoulder, okay, at all times. I thought that I would start at the beginning with my very first published poem. And this poem was published almost 20 years ago, back when I was writing poems, but was not telling anyone that I was writing poems. And I sent it off to the literary magazine at the Air Force Academy. It's called War Literature and the Arts, and they took it. And that kind of opened me up to the possibility of publishing my poems. And so this is also included in my first book of poems, The Man I Was Supposed to Be. This poem's called Knee Deep in the Pacific. 20 years ago, my father described a picture he'd taken in Korea, the forest burning, the crackling of gunfire like branches popping in the wind. He did not want to forget the day so many friends had died, but he had forgotten the film, left to burn in the pocket of his uniform in a fire meant to kill lice and disease. Now he sees things he can't describe, no picture to show or explain. 30 years after Korea, he liked to split wood for days alone, and he would try to answer questions of a 10-year-old son, wanting to give something I could hold on to when he was gone. Now I return this Christmas from years away, and he is old and thinks he will take me clamming once, one thing he has never shown me. He describes clams as big as my forearm as we drive onto the sand and as we wade out into the ocean. But my father has forgotten the lantern, and the sun has just set, the roiling water calm for a moment, the sand darkening like a blackened highway. Our jackets flap in the wind, our knees bend against the drawing surf. He purses his lips and shakes his head, saying without words for the 100th time, he has forgotten. So when we can no longer see our truck or our feet beneath us, we still stand in the ocean. A city of lights scatters along the surf break. Men, families, all waiting for the surf to recede so they can begin searching this darkness for life. And the next three poems are biographical poems. So I either write about Oregon pretty much, or I write different historical biographical pieces. And this first of the three biographical ones is about Leo Tolstoy, and it's something I discovered in my research. So this is called Tolstoy at age 67 learns to ride a bicycle. Beneath the vaulted ceiling of a gymnasium, he straddles this peculiar metal skeleton. His high leather boots, which he stitched just days before, firm on the ground, baggy pants pluming, peasant tunic tied tightly about the waist by a hemp rope. His hair and beard wild as Moses on his mount. He grips the worn leather winding on the steering bar, knuckles white as with his timber axe in the mornings. Around him, a wobbling orbit of 24 others, men and women, riding with uneasy smiles. Such child's play, really, gliding atop spinning rubber. His wife calls this new folly unchristian behavior. Yet his training sessions have lofted a weight from his soul. And now he furrows his enormous brows, sets his lips, places his left boot heavily upon the metal perch. In an instant, his life flashes onto the stage of his mind. His birth he imagined again and again. His brother Nikolai dying in his arms. A wall of mosquitoes slipping like a silk haze toward him across a lake at dusk. The first woman he'd slept with. A peasant girl who always wore a red ribbon or patch. It all rolls toward him across the dead sea of his past, thundering like artillery fire off the snow-glazed Caucasus. And as he lifts his weight and pushes his galleon forward, he prays, God, forgive me for all I have not done in this life. It's funny to think about Tolstoy learning to ride a bike when he's 67, and his wife being just not liking the idea of this. Okay, so this next one is called City Lights. I'm going to read two biographical poems about Einstein that are both set in California. Well, actually, this first one's set in California. Sorry, I switched one of them out. This is called City Lights. When Albert arrived in San Diego by steamer in December 1930, he was, of course, greeted by hundreds of girls in uniform at the pier. They sang a song he vaguely recognized. Then the US Navy marching band played O Holy Night because it was New Year's Eve. When the mayor drove him to Balboa Park, onlookers stood along the road waving white kerchiefs as if surrendering to his intelligence. He was ensnared in hours of speeches and greetings before being driven through Los Angeles to Pasadena, which was his destination. He was to spend the winter of 1931 here, talking with many of the great physicists in the United States. After a day of rest, he was driven up a long and winding road into the mountains. At the top, surrounded by a snowy pine forest, was the enormous white dome of the Mount Wilson Observatory. The flat plain of Los Angeles stretched far to the distant ocean, the sun an orange ball of fire on the horizon. The gaunt Edwin Hubble came out to greet him, then led him inside where the massive telescope was positioned at an angle within a latticed frame of metal. Hubble had used this telescope to make his latest discovery, that the farthest galaxies traveled faster away from us than the nearest. This proved yet another conclusion of relativity, one that Albert had doubted. When it grew dark, Hubble adjusted the telescope so he could view one of the most distant galaxies ever seen. He stood near Albert's shoulder, smoking a pipe, quietly describing several other galaxies just out of sight of the viewfinder. They talked as they returned to the car. Here, the city lights were illuminated. A galaxy of stars spread across the Los Angeles plain. The next day, he was brought to Hollywood to view the film sets. At lunch, Charlie Chaplin was called in, and they ate together. A natural friendship formed, as if their spirits had known each other for years. Chaplin was amused by Albert, his eyes alighting whenever he tried to explain anything about light or energy. They also both cared deeply about the growing turmoil in Europe. And as Albert told him about some of the fears after the war, Chaplin lowered his eyes and listened somberly. When it was time to depart, Chaplin gripped his hand in both of his and insisted that Albert come to the premiere of his latest film, City Lights. He laughed as Chaplin convinced him, "You must experience this." Albert agreed. On the night of the premiere, he was beside Chaplin on the red carpet in front of the Los Angeles Theater, both in their tuxedos. He wondered at the lights. He'd never seen so many, 1,000,000 more than what his father had used to first light the Oktoberfest in Munich so many years before, even more than when he had visited Times Square. The crowd cheered up and down the street. He knew it was not just for him this time. There was a certain energy within the sound that was new. He leaned toward Chaplin. "What I admire about your art is the universality. You don't say a word in your films, yet the world understands you." Chaplin smiled with his bright teeth. "And look at you," he said. "The entire world admires you, yet not a single person understands what you say." This next poem is also about Einstein, and it's set about a year after World War II, when he's in Princeton, living in Princeton, and he's at the Institute for Advanced Study there. It's called Resolve. He understood that time was relative, but on this freezing January morning, his walk along the tree-lined street was as long and slow as it ever was. Under typical conditions, the start of this walk would trigger his mind into an interior space where his thoughts became the voice of God, and he controlled the motion of stars and light photons. But snow had fallen 2 nights before, melted for an afternoon, then refroze into an uneven, crunching white path. The journey to the Institute would take more than half an hour of treacherous, careful stepping, and the only thing he could think about was the Germans. Precisely a year ago, news and photos were released that showed the camps. Skeletons taut with skin, haunted eyes, their dirty striped uniforms, piles of gaunt white bodies in front of buildings with ovens. They were his people, Jews. It was why he had abandoned his homeland to come here, to this frozen town among the pastures. His breath drifted like pipe smoke. When he breathed in, his lips chilled. The chill had settled inside his coat and into his body. Even with his gloved hands pressed into his pockets, a black knit hat pulled down over his ears, a scarf wrapped around his neck, he was still cold. And to think, those prisoners at Auschwitz had stood in this same kind of cold a year ago, waiting to see if the Germans would return after fleeing with their papers and stolen possessions in those damned Nazi sedans, freezing in their tattered prison uniforms, many without shoes on their feet. How could he even think about field theory when they could only think about a piece of bread that wasn't too big so that they would vomit it after swallowing? And now his friend, a German, wanted him to sign a plea to take it easy on the Germans. He would not only refuse to sign it, he would do all that he could to ensure the opposite, that their industrial economy stayed ruined for years. They had shown no guilt or remorse after being caught. They would only create another factory of death. How could there be any doubt? His breath plumed now, as if he were running. The chill only grew worse, the air more bitter. And this last poem I wrote during this summer, and it's appropriate, I think, about the pandemic. So it's called The Pause. Here we are in the season of pausing, delays, and cancellations. In this strange new weather that has, with its invisible powers, changed all traffic somehow. People walking in streets that used to be filled with cars. Our playgrounds and schools emptied. Yellow tape telling us to stay away. Police lines blocking intersections. Arrows guiding our ways down empty corridors. We've read about this in books, about times of plague and revolution, seen it in historical films and speculative fantasies. But now it's our world, the only world we have. Who would have thought that sitting alone at my desk each day, in the corner of my quiet living room, my new workspace, listening to that lone car whisking past on the empty street would be so stressful. Sitting behind the glass looking out at the blue sky of August, watching a neighbor cross the parking lot to her car and vanish. But here I am, and you are too, whoever you might be, so far from each other, feeling the withering weight of this viral weather. Our needs unpaused, our bills still arriving, our children still growing too quickly behind this cold, unfair fishbowl glass they face each day. We all know it must start again. The old unpaused world of connection, the unsocial distanced celebrations. And so we continue our solitary existences in the face of it, holding out hope as we cook our old meals that are somehow strange now. Hope that we can gather beside one another, to hear the poetry in the voices of old friends and distant family, see each other's smiles unmasked again. Not the Zoom smiles, but the actual smiles we remember, the laughs we remember from before this time of pause and distance, to unpause. A few months from now, perhaps, God help us, another year, I'll see you then, our unpaused selves. And thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for sharing, John. We just have to pause a moment because we need to absorb what you've shared. Our final poet is Alison Luterman, and I'm going to introduce her with a quote from her. Poetry is my native language. It is the native language of babies, animals, trees, wind, and wild things everywhere. As we grow older, many people are trained and shamed out of what we once knew. But reading and writing poems can be a path back that helps us reconnect with our innate musical knowing. Welcome, Allison. Take us back, girl.
Thank you so much. Um, Thank you. And John, those poems were amazing. I was riveted. You really cast a spell. Einstein and Tolstoy. I love the Tolstoy poems, so thanks so much. And thank you, Anne, for inviting me here, and Aaron for all your great work, being the tech person. And I just want to jump in, so I will right away. First poem I'm going to read is called Canoe. It's a memory poem. When I was young, years ago, canoeing on the green, green river with my young first husband, I wriggled out of my shorts, eased over the lip of our little boat, and became eel woman, naked and glistening, borne along in the current. He paddled, I floated and whirled and let the ripples take me. Even an hour of that kind of freedom can last for years and years, can become a touchstone you return to, long after the rented canoe has been returned and the road trip has ended, and then the marriage, and then the husband's brief life. And you yourself have become someone else entirely. Still, you return in your mind to the days you could set up a tent in the dark and build a small fire from birch bark and newspaper and sit beside it, savoring your muscles' sweet ache as one by one the uncountable stars came out. And the next poem I'm going to read is called Paying the Rent. It's another memory poem. There's a lot of memory poems in this book. I'm reading from my latest book, which is called In the Time of Great Fires. On my screen, it's like backwards. I don't know if you can see it straight or backwards, but the book is called In the Time of Great Fires, and it's paying the rent. We are going to pay the rent, my mother and I. It's December, early evening. Fire hydrants are wearing hats and beards of snow. I've got a hole in one mitten through which the cold licks my finger not unpleasantly as my young mother, whom I do not know is young, hauls me along, hoisting my 5-year-old self by one arm over piled up hillocks and frozen drifts. She's pregnant, massive in her navy coat, a distant, dependable planet. My sister, who is not yet my sister, sleeps the dreamless sleep of the embryo, folded inside that high belly like a fortune in a cookie, abstract as the idea of someday, months from now, as explained to a kindergartner whose parents are tall, implacable gods, setting the sun in place with one hand and the moon with the other, like spoons and cups at the dinner table. At home, my little brother is throwing a chubby leg over his crib slats, making a brief escape as our father nods over the open newspaper. So much hasn't happened to us yet. The unwinnable war is thousands of miles away. My mother still moves through her days like a ship pulling everyone along in her wake, while high above the witching clouds, the witching trees, white clouds scud by, assemble and break apart. And the next poem I'm going to read, where is it? Is Ode to Aspirin. This is my husband's favorite poem. Um, oh, little white O of 3 a.m. Oh, invisible door. Oh, lozenges of the skull and shoulders. Oh, thumbs on eyelids, hardened pillows. Oh, flicker of tongue. Oh, hard to swallow. Oh, dry. Oh, heavy lifting dream. Humble, anonymous country of gray dawn windows. New mother heating bottles and staring at the cracked linoleum. Oh, wail that will not be comforted. Oh, ShopRite, Rite Aid, Walgreens, CVS. Democracy of fluorescent lights and gray-eyed pharmacists. 2 fried eggs of over-easy sausage, grits with maple syrup, biscuits, pie, and coffee, coffee, coffee. Oh, school teachers with 30 unlined faces, 5 times a week, times forever. Welcome to Western civilization. Oh, anodyne, alleviate America. Take a little bottle with you wherever you go. And next, I want to read a poem called Candle, which is from my husband. Not yet 7 a.m., our street still a forest of shadows, and a woman springs out from behind a row of trash cans to yank, panic-stricken, on the passenger side of Lee's car. He lets her in. She's about 30, dirty blonde, hard used, trembling all over like a soaked cat. Please help me, he'll kill me if he finds I'm leaving, she cries. So he drives her, slumped down in the seat, to Mi Pueblo market, half a mile away, then gives her what's in his wallet. All of it. He's like that, urging her while he does to get the hell out of Dodge as fast and far as she can. Then he fights freeway traffic to reach his job at the machine shop in Hayward, where he calls me, shaking now himself. He's a rescuer of feral cats, this quiet man who will sit by a saucer of milk for hours, soothing the terrified creature until it can take nourishment. But he couldn't save this woman. And sometimes in summer, when our windows are open, we hear the voices screaming, "Shut the fuck up before I give you something to cry about." Yet I tell him, in these vicious times, any small pre-dawn kindness can be a candle that doesn't conquer the dark, but cracks it just a peep at the seams. Her name was Megan. Where did she go then, with her skinny, tattooed wrists and dripping hair? Into the wind and rain, like any wild thing, into the storm of living. And the next poem I'm going to read is called The New Breed. It's for Emma Gonzalez, who, if you remember when the Parkland shooting happened, the massacre a couple of years ago, she rose to leadership and became a really amazing vocal critic of the gun lobby, and she's been speaking out ever since. She's an incredible activist. And there are many other student activists also who rose up in the wake of that shooting. It's called The New Breed. I see her on TV screaming into a microphone. Her head is shaved and she is beautiful and 18, and her high school was just shot up. She's had to walk by friends lying in their own blood, her teacher bleeding out, and she's my daughter, the one I never had. And she's your daughter and everyone's daughter, and she's her own woman in the fullness of her young fire, calling bullshit on politicians who take money from the gun makers. Tears rain down her face, but she doesn't stop shouting. She doesn't apologize. She keeps calling them out, all of them, all of us who didn't do enough to stop this thing. And you can see the gray faces of those who have always held power contort, utterly baffled, to face this new breed of young woman, not ashamed, not compliant, not caring if they call her a 10 or a troll. And she cries, but she doesn't stop yelling truth into the microphone. Though her voice is raw and shaking and the Florida sun is molten brass, I'm 3,000 miles away thinking how Neruda said, the blood of the children ran through the streets without fuss, like children's blood. Only now she is, the young ones are raising holy hell, shouting down the walls of Jericho. And it's not that we road-weary elders have been given the all clear exactly, but our shoulders do let down a little. We breathe from a deeper place. We say to each other, well, it looks like the baton may be passing to these next runners, and they are fleet as thought, fiery as stars. And we take another breath and say to each other, the baton has been passed, and we set off running hard behind them. And I'm seeing it's, yeah. And this next poem is for my father, who's in Massachusetts. And I am so longing to see him, to go back to Massachusetts and visit him again. It's been a long year. But anyway, he's still there. And it's called Too Many to Count. My father hands me the bucket and scissors and asks me to go cut peonies, white, pink, magenta, tightly balled and slightly unfurled. They've multiplied like crazy on the slope behind his house. Long ago, Dad taught himself to garden out of books. My childhood was fat with exalted over tomatoes, blueberry bushes covered with cheesecloth, and a zillion profligate zucchini, which caused an outbreak of zucchini bread, zucchini muffins, and ill-fated zucchini pizza crust, inciting both my brothers to go on a zucchini strike that has lasted to this day. But these peonies, God must have been a little stoned when she dreamed them up, not stopping at one petticoat or two, but piling layer upon layer until even the exhausted bees surrender to excessive lingerie. I stuff the bucket with closed buds and half-open blooms showing their lacy knickers and trudge back up the steep-sloped hill to the house, leaving behind a glowing field of peonies, too many to count, like my father's myriad kindnesses over the decades, pots of soup, loaves of home-baked bread, hours of earnest listening, all offered with the same voluptuous generosity as now when he takes the laden bucket from my arms and tells me to divide the bounty into smaller bunches so he can distribute them among the neighbors. And this is a poem about another kind of generosity. This was a witch who advertised on Facebook. And so I was like, yes, I want to go. She was walking people around the lake. I was like, I want to have a meeting with a witch who advertises on Facebook. So this is called Witch Walk. It was wonderful. So witch, W-I-T-C-H. The witch who'd advertised her services on Facebook walked us around the lake, talking about herbs that heal and what we could gather to eat if big oil failed, if the stores all closed and the lights went out. She wore a lace dress over some kind of track suit. Feathers and dried flowers crowned her dreadlocks. She told us she'd had a nervous breakdown, and in the hospital, a schizophrenic friend on the ward confessed that trees spoke to him. They spoke to her too. So maybe they weren't crazy. Maybe the trees were talking. Released, she headed for wilderness and renamed herself Phoenix, risen from the ashes. Now she leads witch walks to show people what's under our feet: broadleaf and marshmallow, garlic grass, chamomile, mugwort, comfrey, plus at least 900 different kinds of sage. She spoke of its myriad uses: cleanser, hex remover, sanity restorer. And I thought of the 900 different kinds of knowledge there are in this world, most of them invisible. I don't know what I'd expected. A portal, perhaps, to magic me elsewhere. But she spoke only of a slight shift in perception, that which might allow a tiny purplish wildflower to be a doorway. She wanted us to view heaven as already manifest here on earth, even amid the rubble and desolation of our unraveling. Yes, especially then, she said, if we can sing through these throes, our lives too might become beautiful as weeds. Thanks. I'm checking the time. I think maybe one more, and I think that's good. I don't want to wear y'all out. I know poetry is kind of like chocolate mousse. You don't want to like gobble it down too much. So I think to end, I'll end with another walking poem, Morning Song. Morning, fire of purple princess blossoms, toddler pedaling furiously on a tricycle, and the man unlocking his fix-it shop on the corner with its hand-painted warning sign, all my stuff is not worth your life. The last of winter's rain evaporates into fog, and dogwood sheds its fragrance, soft, delicious. I'm building my nest like the chickadee, the yellow-rumped warbler, the dark-eyed junco, out of whatever's at hand. You, as it turns out, are clasped fingers and twinned gait. This terrifying tenderness. Plus coffee, plus trillium and jasmine and pink fuzz of flowering peach. I'm scared to confess to happiness. I know the jealous fates in their dolorous heaven, how they love to feast on the heart. I know they've already marked the spot where one of us dies and the other stands open-mouthed and uncomprehending as dirt closes over our one song. But for just this moment, I want what I have. Love quickens the air. Witness that, oh yellow-bellied sapsucker, lazuli bunting, American robin. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. And I know that you might have to leave before the open mic because you said you're out of
Food. We need food for dinner. Yeah, and I also have, somebody coming to pick something up. So
well, I'm glad you could join us.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh my goodness. We've had a feast today. So thank you. And let's gather ourselves for a few moments and then we'll start with the open mic and we can unmute ourselves and say hallelujah to both of you. Yay.
Hey,
Oh.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Yay.
Wonderful poetry.
Thank you
Beautiful.
so much. Okay, Allison.
Anne.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye for now.
Yes. And John, you'll stay here, I guess. And I did have, you'll just have to make it very evident that you want to share your poetry, but I know Marcy wants to share because she chatted me and I'm not good at chat yet, but but why don't we start with Marcy?
Okay.
Okay,
All right. My poem is called Leavings. Today, even today, I still find your leavings in the oddest places. Bottom drawers, cubby holes, in piles of things. Tiny painted lead soldier with a spear, mounted on a horse, child's plaything, lived with us all those years. Once you had many. Letter opener, brass, and enamel you bought in Spain. The top, a figure of a deer. Ancient knife in hide scabbard with carved lion's head. Leather case with pristine tools of a bygone age. Fine pens I never saw you use. Your green card from when they were green. A book with notes from your grammar school teachers to your mother. A picture of a little boy you told me you thought was your son.
thank you, Marcy. I will ask everyone to put your video on. It's like Marcy did when she was part through. I guess you did it part way through, Marcy. Thank you for starting us off, Marcy. Now, should I just go down this list and see? Does Deirdre want to read?
And I have a poem.
Oh, Ellen, I see you. Okay, go for it.
And what I would suggest for us, if you are not reading your poem, put yourself on mute just in case, and that way background noise will go away and we'll be able to hear the one sharing the poem with us.
Okay. Should I start?
Yes.
Please, we would love
Okay.
to hear it.
First of all, I'm loving this. I so appreciated the 3 poets we've heard so far. And thank you, Anne, and thank you, Pastor Aaron, so much. This is called Next. I am in the waiting room, waiting to be seen and to be heard, to be forgiven and then forgotten. I am waiting for that glorious aha moment, for all of you to realize how wonderful I am, for you to admit that I was right and you were wrong. I am waiting for my guardian angel to swoop in and beat up those bullies. I'm waiting for Daddy to come home and lift me to the ceiling. I'm waiting for Mommy to take my flannel PJs out of the warm dryer. I'm waiting for snow. I'm waiting for summer vacation. I'm waiting for my guests to arrive. Now I'm waiting for them to leave. Go already. I'm waiting for something to change. I've had enough of this. I'm ready for that. I'm waiting to be revealed as the fraud that I am. I'm waiting for my turn. Next.
Well, take that, Ellen.
Thank you so much, Ellen.
Now I know
So
Deirdre,
we have Deirdre who would like to share a poem, and then Diane would like to share a poem.
thank you, Aaron.
Hello, I'm Deirdre. This is titled Alone. Was there ever a time a woman could wander safe, alone, through Central Park, say, at night? Maybe Marilyn's time was different. She was lucky, spent an entire night on a park bench unmolested. But we prided ourselves on knowing better. That jogger was foolhardy to loop the reservoir at dusk. So we meandered the ramble only midday, amid birders caught by warblers, gay men caught by each other. At night, we didn't venture in except with crowds to see Shakespeare backlit by the skylight's glow, and once breathed peace amid candles in the sheep meadows anti-New Year's Eve. We knew if we just anticipated enough, we'd be safe. Then the towers fell, taking immigrant and blue blood alike. but some of us had already moved. Los Angeles was different, we told ourselves. If you weren't in gang territory, didn't take the metro at night, you'd be okay. We tried to relax in the sun as Sandy Hook took our children, Parkland took our teens, San Bernardino took our neighbors, Charlottesville and George Floyd took our illusions. COVID took our parents and neighbors and friends. Now it's safer not to go out at all. Forget the holidays. Keep in touch by Zooming. Get a dog for company and be comforted. We're in this together, you know, here in America, land of the free.
Thank you. You made me question that phrase you used, knowing better. Don't you know better? I remember that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I would ask Diane to unmute, and after Diane, Eileen.
Okay, here I am. This poem is called Remote. 8:30 a.m. at two ends of long dining room table sit Amelia 5 and Hudson 7, kindergartner and second grader homeschooling during COVID. School computers hooked up to internet, school apps and Zoom as they remote learn. Single mom bounces between them, helping one, then the other, navigate documents, videos, time with teacher, breakout rooms with classmates. Amelia stands up, chants, I pledge allegiance to the flag, straight into the good morning song in full voice. Amelia, I can't hear my teacher, from Hudson at the other end. She turns down her voice volume as her Wi-Fi goes glitchy, a newly learned vocabulary word. Mom gets up, races to her side, trips through snake pit of cords, adapters, feet, where she signs in again, gets Amelia going. Tech support team, not an option. 900 open problem tickets. Hudson's teacher gives assignment which he misses, finds symbols to raise his hand, unmute himself, ask teacher to repeat, write down assignment in second grade shorthand, mute himself again. Now to find their placemat whiteboards, workbooks, page 17, 23, 31, scurrying with a job to do, crayons, markers, hold up work for teacher to peruse, with 27 proud students on screen. Gym period at 10 a.m. is 5-minute video. They dance, run, gyrate in place, wiggle like little worms, get their blood moving, give brains a rest. Smiles, mom joins in. 11:30 is Amelia's lunchtime while Hudson works on his own. Mom, I don't know which book she means. I need help. Mom, my sandwich is yucky. Can I have yogurt? By 1:30, it's anarchy. Kindergartner throws paper balls, spills her water, hides under the table. I hate kindergarten. Teacher tries to get kids to leave their Legos alone. Sit back down. Mom, breathless. 2 more hours to go. And these are the lucky families. Mom, magna cum laude, family well off, college-bound kids. What will become of us?
Diane, is that for real? It sounds impossible.
It's for real. I was there.
Thank you so much, Diane. Right now, I want to give kind of just a list of who we have coming up. Eileen, we will invite you to be next, and then Samuel, then Charlotte, and then Janet. And then we've got 2 Anitas after that.
Celebration. I awake, sounds unfamiliar. Dawn rises rose pink. My room on the lower floor, doors open to a vast body of water, waves slosh created by the invincible. Ski boats travel, pulling humans, puppets on a dancing string. A newly built dwelling place does not belong to me, but does. Windows overlook the long, deep water created by volcanoes, millions of years of grinding down, heavy rains, mountaintops dignified by snow. I gaze across the primordial pond, pine trees caress. Hundreds, vitiated, stand naked, shameless, faultless. The scene tells the world climate is the problem. I am healthy, stand naked in my room, shameless. This scene tells the world I am strong in my mind. Age has not ravaged my brain. Senility has not shown itself yet. Civilization breaks natural meditation in this splendid home. 80 today, promised I would write a poem. Sit down, spiral bound pad fills with words. Sweeping comet atlas gifts me with inspiration. Small group celebration. This is your day, they repeat like a mantra. A cup of hot, fresh brewed coffee placed near my bedside, remembering it is what I do to start my day. Daughter, I serenaded with beautiful, beautiful brown eyes as a child. New son-in-law assembles tacos we will have for dinner. Niece and nephew hold me in their arms with their eyes. Granddaughter, you can sit here, Nana. I envy the ageless crater, dazzling asteroid, suggesting I will not live forever. The lake, its bare trees, the mythical God holding the world in his hands will not be aware that I am no longer.
I love that you're shameless, Eileen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eileen. Samuel, would you like to unmute and share?
Okay. This is called Canaan. I just wrote it this morning. I've got a pair of boots in the closet with the dust of the desert on them. I've got a box in the basement full of scribbled notes, and the dust of the desert winds has carved its lessons in my skin. My desiccated skin doesn't know how to live in this moist garden. My face cracks if it takes in too much water, the way my soul cracks when you bathe me in so much affection. I need a new face. The old one is falling off. I got here through the desert with my cactus spikes, my thick skin. Now my boots are in the closet, my journal's in the basement, and my dry heart is trying to sprout in this new moist garden under this gentle sun. And I'm hoping my spikes are soft enough as my smooth-skinned children run up for a hug.
Thank you. You're a desert rat, huh?
Yep.
Thank you so much, Samuel. I moved out here from Lancaster, so I can relate to the desert here. Thank you so much. Charlotte, would you like to unmute and share?
This is called Rising. It's something like Allison said, it's a memory poem. Rising, as surely as mist, freedom and dependence cycle from Mother Earth into a new body of perception, charging a bare wisp of energy with imagination. Mistrusting comparison, I thrived on creativity, wit, and spirited curiosity, a lively combination. Rising, shadowed waters scroll the essence of childhood, the spring, the pond, the creek swelling under us cousins, squealing at the swimming hole. Swinging immortal summer days, we bundle weeping wands, grip the silvery serrated lances, and holding our breath, arc over the mystery of surface haze. Then down we drop, temptations churning the water mud red, until afternoon plays out. And supper calls us home, where fireflies cue constellations. Rising out of the heights of Cherokee, Atakula hunting grounds, the Nolichucky suspended our cloudy impressions, frolicking downstream to the French Broad, merging tranquilly with the Tennessee, wafted particles into the Ohio before depositing a dusting of laughter and Appalachian clay on the mighty delta of the Mississippi, casting a last few grains along the genial Gulf shore. Rising, cycle our artisan nature intends, having equipped us with 5 senses overseen by our own chemical oracle, which reaches for emotional prowess and neuronal expansion, sends signals arcing across synapses, thrust into consciousness as afterthought, dropping headlong into evidence, life churning, certainly not detachment, not decline, not disappearance, not dust.
Lovely, Charlotte.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Next we have Janet, and then just after Janet will be Anita Poulier, and then Anita, and then Jay, and then Jacqueline.
Hello, you all. Smiles masked, searching for creases of love beside your eyes. Then grasping the string we hold, you and me, opposite ends of the 6-foot divide. When it's your turn, you will let go and turn the corner and go out of sight. I'm still dangling in the masked divide, leaning near a disease among us. The good that I want to share becomes the bad I might be spreading. I remember the ease, too soon replaced by disease, droplets in the air we breathe, the air we share.
Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you. Anita. There we go.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
Okay, so it's only a couple of days before Hanukkah, and Facebook reminded me of an older poem of mine. You know the way they do. They say, do you want to post this? And then a friend wrote to me to remind me that this poem, which has been in a few journals, is actually read by her family in Israel, which gave me more pleasure than anything. So I thought I would read my poem called Hanukkah. Sure, we know the story: desecration of a temple, hopelessness, sorrow. Short on sanctified oil, the fire and the light on hand turn out to be good enough. Darkness is defeated. And isn't that the point? Things are never perfect, never. And good enough is the miracle. As each of our children comes into their own defying myth and dogma, they create for us, the generation of overseers, a unique spectrum in which to pause, inhale the holiday, embrace imperfection, redefine terms, witness history in the making.
Woo! Nice, Anita.
Wow. Thank you so much. All right. Anita McLaughlin, I would like to invite you to unmute and share with us.
Hi. My poem is called Commotions. The Fillmore train blasts its way across town. Horn sounds at every signal from 12th to Peck. The air pounded by iron wheels running hot over steel. No one listens until it stops. A crash of too much silence. The air pulses as squadrons of Ranferincus bus Santa Paula Airport. Every afternoon they cough, spit, yank themselves over riverbed. Noses pointed toward the runway, sink carefully to bumpy landings. At 3:10 a.m., low-pitched rumblings roil across the valley, a noisy mystery guarded by ancient South Mountain and its dusty partner, Santa Clara River. I crawl from my bed, find my keys, drive every canyon road until I find the monster or power saw, rocket ship or rafter of ornithologist dinosaurs, painting contrails against dark skies, making too much noise, drinking way too much beer.
Whoa. Whoa.
Thank you, Anita. All right, I would like to invite Jay to unmute and share.
I wrote this poem with the idea of doing away with the word I. This poem is called We, and it's written in honor of the inauguration of Joseph R. Biden Jr. We care. We are strong. We are Grammy and Grandpa. We are Mom and Dad. We are their kids. We are cops and firemen. We bury our dead. We will survive COVID. We will wear masks. We are doctors and nurses. We want truth always. We love our country. We are trees with leaves that fall. We are mountains majestic. We are waves that lap our shores. We want our normal life back. We want you to succeed. We are America.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much.
Good to see you, Jay.
All right, Jacqueline, I would like to invite you to unmute and share with us. Someone else let me know that you wanted to share, so I want to make sure that you want to share before we move forward.
Oh, are you talking to Jacqueline?
Yep, Jacqueline, would you like to share with us?
Yes, I did want to share.
Okay,
I do
great.
want to share. Okay.
Beautiful.
When she thought no one was looking, gazing out a window, roaming room to room, my beautiful aunt would fill her hands with her breasts, lift them ever so slightly, give them a better view, then slide her hands down to her buttocks, transferring tenderness there. Her face as though she was settling into herself, caressing her future. How can it be when a girl watches her beautiful aunt hugging her body as she flows through the house? The girl, unaware what was begun before birth, is directing her stare, senses she is eavesdropping on herself as a woman, even though when she mimicked her beautiful aunt, she felt she was following the moves of a dance. The girl wonders if she will ever understand. Sometimes What can't be known is a present to be opened later. Thank you. Great reading.
My goodness. My goodness. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Appreciate that. And that is the end of our list. Unless anyone else would like to go, I don't want to leave anyone out.
I'll read something.
Okay, and after Anne, I saw Bob's hand raised, so we will call on you after Anne.
Oh, walking into dawn, I gather crumbs of quiet, the sky a bliss of color, birds twitching from branch to branch, a rabbit settled on a tuft of grass, a hawk on the pole, watching, machines still sleeping. I guard these morsels in the dust bin of my soul, my piece de resistance. When in the face of too much, the phone ringing, the door knocking, questions waiting to be answered, when my head begins to fracture and my grip falters, then I offer these crumbs to myself, loaves fit for the gods.
Thank you so much, Anne. How wonderful. All right, Bob, would you like to unmute?
Okay. I'm okay now?
Yes.
Okay. And in case we don't have enough with COVID and everything else going on, we always have one more thing left to us, root canal. Root canal. Tooth, why are you so mean? So much pain, I want to scream. Why do you want to hurt me so? You are the meanest tooth I know. Ow, 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 this is it. You're gonna die, you little shit. And with a drill, I'll scrape onto your brains and put an end to all these pains. And then when you're finally dead, I'll fill your roots with flaxen thread. And then I'm gonna bite and chew and spit on you. And who knows what else I'll do.
Well, I hope you feel better, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Janice just came in. Janice Kalick. I wonder if she has a poem.
Hi, Janice. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, I was in and then something happened. I was in since before the beginning and then something happened. And so I went out and came back in, but I don't have a poem to read, but I really appreciate the poets and the poems and everybody showing up.
Thank you so much, Janice.
I love your image with the sun setting, Janice, right behind.
Thank you, Anne.
Well, thank everybody for coming and just pouring this good news out. And to me, it's good news just to hear everybody still thinking and reaching out. So thanks. And then we'll see you in 3 months. We'll have another one.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Wait a minute, we didn't hear from Peg Quinn. Doesn't Peg have a?
Oh, let's double check. Peg.
Maybe she left.
Well, let's double check anyone here just to make sure. We don't want to leave anyone out if you have a poem to share. So just wave your hand, unmute, holler at us, and we'll make sure that you are able to share your poem.
Okay, well, I guess.
Okay.
All righty.
Oh my goodness. We have someone signing in at 3:10 a.m. in Cyprus. Wow.
Wow.
Amazing.
Deborah.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you for joining us.
Do they have a poem?
Just a message on chat that it was worth waking up for.
That was
to hear all of our poets.
That was David, a storyteller. Okay. Well, goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for
Bye.
coming.
Thank you.
We will see you soon.
Bye.
Wonderful.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, Ann. Amen.
Bye, Ann. Bye, Ellen.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye,
Thank you, Ann, so much. Thank you, Pastor.
Bye, Ellen.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Oh,
Pastor
you're
Ellen.
everyone.
Thank you, beautiful Dr. Sis. Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays. Blessed everything to everybody.
Thank you, Susie. So glad you were able to come.
Thank you so much. Well done, Erin, as always. And beautiful Dr. Sis. Thank you, everybody. Beautiful work. Good night.
Oh, thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone. Take care. Stay healthy. Stay safe.
Amen. You too.